G'day guys, what's going on and welcome back to the Bit of Footy YouTube channel. Now in today's video we're looking at the top 10 largest grand final margins in AFL and VFL history. Obviously we just had the grand final that passed where the D's beat the Dogs by a hefty margin, so we're going to have a look at where that margin fits in to this list. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. The 10th highest grand final margin was between the D's and the Pies, where the margin was left at 73 points. The D's got 121 to the Pies 48 in that game. The first quarter, the Pies actually had the leads, kicking 3 goals to 2 in the first quarter, and then the D's got out to a handy lead. They kicked 4 goals to 1 in the second, and then another 4 goals to 1 in the third, and then 7 goals to 1 in the final quarter, leaving the score to be 121 to 48 in front of a massive crowd of 115,000. The 9th highest grand final score was in the year 1949 between Essendon and Carlton, where the Bombers defeated the Blues by 73 points. The final score ended up being 125 to 52. Again, it was a close game in the first quarter. The scores were 16 to 21. But in the second quarter, the Blues were kept goalless, and the Bombers went out to a commanding, well, not really a commanding lead, but a handy lead at quarter time. The scores at halftime, the scores being 49 to 22. In the third quarter, the scores were left at 30 to 87. Bloody hell! And in the final quarter, obviously the scores were left at 52 to 125. The 8th highest grand final margin was actually recorded this year. It was this year's grand final, which left the Dogs on 66 and the D's on 140 points. Obviously being a margin of 74 points. The first quarter we know started out with the Demon Blitz, where they led 29 to 8 at quarter time. At half time, the Dogs were actually in front. And then obviously the D's went on a rampage in the third quarter, kicking 7 goals to the Dogs 2 goals, and then kicking a miraculous 9 goals to the Dogs 1 goal in the last quarter. The 7th highest grand final margin was recorded in 1985 between the Bombers and the Hawks, where the Bombers won that game by 78 points. The final scores were left Essendon 170 to Hawthorn 92. The first quarter was a pretty even quarter. The Bombers got 6 goals 4 to the Hawks 5 goals 1. And then the second quarter was sort of even as well. It was 11 goals 9 to 9 goals 3 at the end of the second. The end of the third quarter had the Bombers sitting on 15-11 to the Hawks 11 goals 5. And the final quarter is where the Bombers kicked 11 goals and 3 behinds to the Hawks 3 goals 3 behinds, leaving the score at 170 to 92. The 6th highest grand final margin was recorded by the West Coast Eagles over the Cats, where the scores were left at 143 to 63. And it was an 80-point margin in this game. Geelong actually had the lead in the first quarter, 28 to 27, but then the Eagles got out to a hefty lead. It was 60 to 37 at halftime, 90 to 54 at three-quarter time, and then it ended at 143 to 63. The 5th highest grand final margin was recorded in 1980 between the Tigers and the Pies, where the Tigers defeated the Pies 159 to 78. It was an 81-point margin in that game in the end. The first quarter had the Pies on 18 to the Tigers 41. The second quarter left the Pies on 34 to the Tigers 77. Then the Tigers were on 107 to the Pies 48 at three-quarter time, and leaving the final score at 159 to 78. The 4th highest grand final margin was recorded in 1983 between the Hawks and the Bombers, where the Hawks defeated the Bombers by 83 points, with the final score being 140 to 57. The first quarter, the Hawks got out to a 5-goal 6 to 3-goal lead, and then the second quarter, the Hawks kicked 7 goals to the Bombers 1. And it was just the floodgates were opened from that point on. The Hawks got 4 goals to a goalless quarter in the third quarter for the Bombers, and then the final quarter, the Hawks got 4 goals, and so did the Bombers, leaving the score at 140 to 57 in that one. The third highest grand final margin was in 2019, where the Tigers defeated the Giants 114 to 25 by a margin of 89 points. The game started pretty closely with a quarter time margin of 15 to 8 in the Tigers' favour. Then the Tigers got out to a handy buffer, kicking 5 goals and keeping the Giants goalless in the second quarter. Then they got another 5 goals in the third quarter, the Tigers, and the Giants got they got 1 goal in the third quarter, and then obviously the final score was left at 114 to 25, with the Giants kicking 3 goals 7 and the Tigers kicking 17 goals 12. The second highest grand final margin was recorded in 1998 between the Hawks and the D's, where the Hawks won by a margin of 96 points, with the final score being 152 to 56. The first quarter, Hawthorn had a lead of 28 to 11. Then the second quarter, they kicked 6 goals to the D's 1, leaving the halftime score to be at 69, Huntsman's favourite number, and Hawthorn got it as well. What a coincidence. So Melbourne 20 points. In the third quarter, the 3-quarter time score was left to be 100 to 44, and obviously in the final quarter the score was left to be 152 to 56. And obviously we all know this, the highest grand final margin recorded to this day was in the 2007 grand final between the Cats and the Power, when the final score was 163 to 44, leaving the margin at 119 points. Mooney got 5, Chapman got 4, so did Johnson on this day. First quarter score was 37 to 14. The second quarter was left at 79 to 27, which means the Cats got 6 goals and the Powers 2 in the second. The Cats ended up kicking 7 goals to the Powers 1 in the third, and then the Cats got another 6 goals to the Powers 1 in the final quarter, leaving the margin to what it was, 119 points. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those were the top 10 largest grand final margins in AFL VFL history. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in another video very soon. Cheers.